Hi, I'm Frank and welcome to my woodturning channel. This week I'm going to tackle a vase made out of this yellow birch. I have something in mind for a certain kind of decoration on this vase, which I've never done before. So hopefully it works out. We'll see how it goes. This yellow birch is very hard. It's as hard as a maple burrow. So that might be a bit tricky, but we'll see. I'm going to start this piece between centers, so the first thing I do is just find the center on each side, just using a compass. And then I like to hammer in the spur drive a little bit so it's seated well. Normally I might start a piece like this using my bowl gouge, but because it's spindle oriented grain and I have a very large heavy duty spindle roughing gouge, I'm going to use that. Yeah, this is made by Doug Thompson Tools, and it's a pretty heavy duty spindle roughing gouge. I don't use it that often, but for stuff like this it comes in handy. I just want to acknowledge that the idea for this piece came from something I saw on Pinterest. So this isn't my own idea, my own sort of novel idea. I did see it done elsewhere, a little bit different design, but a very similar approach. So I just wanted to make that clear that this isn't my own sort of from scratch idea. And once I have it relatively round, I'm just going to use this Bedan tool, or you could use a parting tool as well. I'm just going to start to roughly shape the tenon for this. You can see I'm using the tower jaws here for my chuck with an extra long tenon. I really like using that a lot more than just a regular small tenon on things like hollow forms and deep vases like this. It just provides a lot more stability, a lot less chance of knocking the piece out around. I'll just continue using the spindle roughing gouge to get the approximate shape I'm after. The tool slipped a little bit there, so I think just to be safe, I'll just use the parting tool and establish a little bit of a shoulder, and that way it'll prevent the tool from skipping back. Last thing I want to do is to hit the jaws of the chuck with the tool. I like to use the spindle gouge here on the top to get a nice crisp, clean cut. For my finishing cuts on the outer surface, I'm using this detail gouge. It's a 1/2 inch detail gouge, very similar to a spindle gouge. They basically do the same thing. And then I'll clean up any little lines with a negative rake scraper. I'm going to drill out as much as I can of the vase. That just makes the whole hollowing process simpler. Oh, now here I jammed the bit into the piece. So I guess that just shows you got to be a little careful when you push it in. Always stop before it contacts the wood, lock everything down, and then slowly extend the drill bit into the piece. I find the easiest way to start hollowing out vases like this is just using a bowl gouge. And because it's end grain, you got to go from inside to outside. And what I found is the piece was quite unstable. It was creating a lot of vibration, so I used this steady rest to help things, and it's much better now. This steady rest is made by Vicmark, and I found it's one of the nicest and simplest to attach to your piece. Very easy to use. Yeah, I really like it. As you get in deeper, it's always important to just keep checking your wall thickness. And I'm just looking for a nice even wall thickness consistent throughout the piece. Once I'm finished this first little area, I'll take out any ridges or little bumps or grooves just with a negative rake scraper. And then I won't go back to that area again. That'll be its final surface. As the piece got deeper, it was starting to get harder and harder to make good cuts inside. So I just resorted to this hollowing system from one way. I could have used hand hollowing tools as well, but this makes it so much easier, a lot less stress on your body, and much easier to control your cut and get a nice smooth finish on the inside. To get a good look inside the piece, I have a nice little LED light. There it is there. It's magnetic and sticks to my tool post. And that light comes from Cindy Drozda. I've got a link to her website in my video notes. Now I'm just using this contraption here, which is actually part of Ron Brown's turner's laser guide. It's normally supposed to be used on a turning tool, but I've just adapted it here with a little piece of dowel, and it's perfect for figuring out where the bottom of the inside of your bowl or the inside of your vase is. And this way now I can just part down, and then I know down to that area I'm going to have enough thickness at the bottom of the vase. Very handy little tool. I have a link to the tool in my YouTube notes for this video. So after clearing the wood away with the bowl gouge, I like to finish up just with that spindle gouge or a detail gouge, just to get a little cleaner cut. I've painted the entire inside of the piece with some black gesso. Just watered the gesso down a little bit so it would flow out a little better. So that was the look I was going for there. Then you can see I've got a platform arrangement in my banjo. This is something I've made up so that I can put horizontal and vertical lines on the piece. I just hold the pencil flat on the piece and then either spin the piece or move the pencil from side to side to make the horizontal lines. Next, I'm going to cut out some of the areas at the top using a combination of a handsaw, and then I'm also going to use a Kutzall burr in my rotary power tool. Here it is here, so I'm just going to carefully cut out the areas that I want cut out. Then I use these different wood files to just refine the shape a little bit, take out any of the imperfections from the carving tool. And there it is. I got the look I was going for there. Next is just a lot of wood burning with my Pyrography pen. First I do all of the straight lines as best I can, just by hand. And then once those are all finished, I'm going to go into each of the blocks that I want to be darker and then just texture them. It's just a small writing bit that I'm just creating these little textures with. It was a long process, took a lot of time, lots of off the lathe working time on this piece. To clean up the bottom, I'm going to use this adjustable mandrel from Woodchuckers. It's a really handy device. I mean, you can do the same thing by just putting a piece of wood in your chuck and having it long enough so it'll hit the bottom of the vase. But this adjustable one is really handy. I've used it many times for many of my pieces to take off the bottom like this. There's some weak and punky areas down here. Just to be safe, I'm going to put some CA glue in there and just stiffen it up a bit. Last thing I want is for that area to fail now that I have the piece almost finished. And I'm using that detail gouge across the very bottom of the vase again, just to get a nice clean surface. After cutting off the bottom with the saw, I then take it over to my bench and just take the rest of the little nub off with my Kutzall burr. I've shown this in some of my other videos. I get that sanded up and the bottom's all finished. And then I forgot to show the finishing of this piece. Basically, I just sprayed it with a rattle can of spray lacquer. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and stay tuned for some of the images of the final piece. I'm pretty happy with how the piece turned out, but it was a lot of work. So I'm not so sure if I'll make another one again or not. This might be my one and only.